Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94, back with another reaction video. Today we're going to react to what happened to THQ. So, as we all know, THQ is back in effect, but for a while they were gone, which is why the WWE games went over to 2K because THQ went under. But they have made a comeback with the AEW games, and I must say, the AEW games, they are alright, but they don't hit like the original WWE games that they made back in the day. Yeah, it just don't hit the same, bro. But without further ado, let's get right into it.
THQ.
Legendary.
THQ, like most companies I talk about, released video games for the Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Sega Genesis, and they would carry on releasing games for new systems such as Nintendo's handheld devices and the Sony PlayStation. You've probably even seen their names on such hits as Saints Row, Darksiders, and the Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune games, which seem to release for every console on the market. What's probably going to shock you most of all about THQ is who founded the company. Well, that was LJN co-founder Jack Friedman.
Jack understood branding and licensing better than anyone else in the world.
He would have Brooke Shields and E.T.
I think he was the first one to license E.T. and he saw it right away.
So I think of E.T., Michael Jackson.
Jack was the first American licensee of Nintendo.
WWF Wrestling.
You go to Knight Rider, Mr. T.
Jack background was licensing. That's what he knew. He was one of the entrepreneurs that started the licensing industry.
He was a kid at heart, loved toys.
So he changed the toy business a lot.
The industry was thinking, who is this guy?
LJN had a history of releasing some of the worst games ever on the Nintendo Entertainment System and some other consoles.
Damn.
However, THQ didn't start in the video game industry. They were initially created as a toy company, hence the name THQ or Toy Headquarters. Their toy line definitely left something to be desired, and I honestly can't say I owned any of them as a child. They had toys for Fox's Peter Pan and the Pirates, which was a cartoon and an NES game. They also had a Home Alone figurine of Kevin McAllister who could scream similar to the movie. Again, they would also release a video game for the NES and Super Nintendo. Maybe the craziest toy of all was the
they was hitting anything that was pop culture related. They was hitting. They was moving on it fast too. You can't knock them for it, bro. You can't knock them for it at all. Nope. That's a hell of a run right there, bro. For real. They was hitting on it. E.T., WWE, Peter Pan, goddamn, what else was there? Home Alone, Vanilla Ice, goddamn.
Vanilla Ice doll that the company paid $150,000 to license in 1991. However, with all that said, we're here to talk about video games. So how did THQ get into the video game industry?
Facts. They
would acquire a division of Broderbund in September 1990 and release their first video game, Fox's Peter Pan and the Pirates, for the NES in 1991. They would then make a move to shortcut their way to being a public company by doing a reverse merger takeover of the public shell corporation, Trinity Acquisition Corporation. The deal was made using a stock swap valued at $33 million, with THQ becoming a shareholder owning 51.7% of the new entity. They would then retain the THQ name and Jack Friedman would be named the president. As much as THQ was a toy company and a video game company, they were also a professional acquisition company, buying up more subsidiaries than I've probably ever seen. Of course, this is how they would go on to become the largest video game publisher in the world. Their first subsidiary was Black Pearl Software, headquartered in Chicago. They would acquire them in June of 1993. From 1992 to 1994, while the video game industry was switching from 8-bit systems to 16-bit systems, THQ would begin to struggle, going from a revenue of $50 million in 1992 to only $13 million in 1994. They would then make a decision in 1994 to completely withdraw from the toy business. It's kind of sad because how awesome was that Vanilla Ice doll? Since their start into the video game industry, they would release a good amount of video games such as Where's Waldo, Home Alone, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, which isn't that bad of a game, Pit Fighter, which is a horrible game, and a few other video games that basically required licensing of already existing IPs. In 1995, the founder Jack Friedman would leave the company to co-found a new toy company called Jakks Pacific. Brian Farrell would then take over as the CEO of THQ. Between 1996 and 1998, THQ was starting to recover from its revenue losses that occurred in 1994. But by early 1999, their contracts with WCW were set to expire, causing them to lose their contract with Electronic Arts. Since the WCW accounted for 2/3 of THQ's revenues, their stock price would drop from $20 a share down to only $11 per share. They would continue acquiring companies in the 90s, and by the end of 1999, they had acquired a total of 6 companies, all while continuing to release video games through its parent company and its subsidiaries they were acquiring. In February 2000, THQ would face their first class action lawsuit over federal security law violations due to non-disclosure of material information. THQ was basically lying about the state of its business, their financial results, and prospects, causing their stock price to be inflated as high as $38 a share.
Damn.
In late 1999, they would claim their WWF video game for the Nintendo 64 was a #1 seller. This also contributed to the $38 share increase.
That
However,
game is
on
goated,
February
though.
10th, 2000, the Street.com revealed that THQ had selectively disclosed that its first half results would be worse than previously represented, and that many of their titles did not sell well in the previous quarter. Basically, THQ artificially inflated their third quarter results for 1999. Once this information was released, THQ's stock price declined to as low as $17 a share. 8 individuals would take advantage of the increased stock price and sell off their combined 522,912 shares for a total of over $14 million. Brian Farrell, who was the CEO of THQ, was on this list and would pocket alone over $4.5 million based on insider information. All this was very bad for the company, but they continued acquiring video game companies, and by September 2000 had 11 different studios across the globe. Even though the 90s were hard on THQ, by 2007 they would announce their revenue had reached over $1 billion. This would be the peak for the company because only a year later they would be forced to close 5 of its video game studios. By 2009, THQ would have a huge decline in their sales and would be forced to cut $220 million in annual costs.
Damn.
Before all this happened, they were running as big as Activision, but many of their big budget games sold poorly despite having decent reviews. 2008 is also when a recession hit the United States, and this didn't help the company at all. THQ was in jeopardy of being purchased by another company after their shares decreased by 86%, valuing the company at only $173 million, which was a long ways from a year and a half ago where they had reached over $1 billion. They were also losing hold of its kids games based on Nickelodeon TV shows and Pixar movies. In March 2009, they would sell off 2 of their independent companies and sell its big huge game studio to 38 Studios. I think the reason for their decline is because they weren't releasing any video game industry defining games. With loads of wrestling games, sports games, Rugrats, and MTV games, nothing really stood out. That's not to say they didn't have some good games on their list, but if you're a video game collector,
What you mean they didn't have good video games? They had the SpongeBob game. They had WWE. They had Saints Row. Shit, I feel like if THQ would have focused more on I think if they would have focused on games kind of like Saints Row instead of all these, these cartoon movie games like Rugrats in Paris and all that shit. Cause I ain't gonna lie, this shit started to die out around like 2002, bro. These kid movies, video games, the video games that are paired up with the movies. Yeah, you could have stopped this around like 2002, bro. Could have just focused on the WWE shit. You know what I'm saying? Come out with a couple. Look, they got Star Wars. How the fuck do you fumble with Star Wars on your roster? How do y'all do that? That is impossible. You got WWE. You got Star Wars. You got Evil Dead. You could have made a zombie game. They could have made some zombie games. They could have made a whole bunch of shit. But they kept, I guess it's because they kept sticking to the formula. And it's like, when the formula ain't working, it's time to innovate. But see, around this time, this is when video game companies stopped innovating. When the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 era came out, that's when video games stopped innovating. They stopped being innovative and they started playing it safe. Nobody wanted to take risks no more. See, in the PlayStation 2 era, everybody was taking risks. Everybody was making a game that was just out of the box. Some stuck, some didn't, but still.
You probably find the majority of THQ games on the under $5 shelf. By February 2010, THQ was still struggling and would announce a reshuffling of 2 of their studios and lay off around 60 employees. The same year, they would announce the U-Draw game tablet for the Nintendo Wii. This is where THQ would get themselves into another class action lawsuit over allegations that the company violated federal security laws. The lawsuit would allege that THQ knowingly made false and misleading statements when informing investors about the anticipated U-Draw device.
Damn.
While U-Draw would sell well in early 2011, THQ would overestimate the demand for the holiday season and lose over $30 million. THQ would end the product and lay off developers who worked on it. By May of 2012, THQ reported a new loss of $239 million. In order to prevent being delisted from the NASDAQ, THQ would hold a stockholder meeting and ask for approval to reverse split the company's common stock. By the end of 2012, THQ had defaulted on a $50 million loan from Wells Fargo and were headed towards bankruptcy, and their stock price had dropped down to $1.16.
Shit.
They would be forced to delay their flagship titles Company of Heroes 2 and Metro Last Light in 2013. In an effort to raise money, they would partner with Humble Bundle to launch the Humble THQ Bundle, and by December 12, 2000, they would sell nearly 800,000 bundles and raise $5 million. However, only 7 days later, the company would be forced to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy with the intention of selling the company and all of its assets to Clear Lake Capital Group. A judge would ultimately deny the bid, and creditors would instead approve an auction of THQ's properties. THQ's game rights went all over the place, with Crytek acquiring the Homefront franchise, Sega acquired the Warhammer 40,000 series and the Evolve game, WWE series went to Take-Two Interactive, Ubisoft acquired the publishing rights to South Park: The Stick of Truth, and Violation obtained the publishing rights to the Metro franchise. On February 26, 2013, THQ would sell off its remaining properties, Darksiders, Homeworld, Red Faction, and Destroy All Humans, as well as its licensed and original properties in a court-approved auction. Nordic Games would purchase THQ's remaining franchises and licensed software. With THQ no longer being a company, Nordic Games would purchase their trademark in 2014 and 2 years later rename their company from Nordic Games to THQ Nordic. It was a long road for THQ with lots of acquisitions, tons of existing IP games, and 2 different class action lawsuits, but in the end they just couldn't survive. Thanks for joining me on what happened to THQ. If I missed any key information about the company you feel should have been included in the video, please post in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to subscribe, click the notification bell, like the video, and follow me on social media. Thanks for
Yeah, man. THQ, man. Y'all was doing some shady shit. Y'all was doing some shady shit behind the scenes. I see why y'all went outside, bro. Hey, but it is what it is, though, man. it is what it is though at this point, because y'all should have knew better. Y'all should have knew better. That was wrong. Y'all knew y'all wasn't supposed to be doing that shit, but you did it, and then you fell under. You deserved it. I'm still mad that 2K got the rights to WWE because, man, them WWE games, they don't hit the same at all, bro. They just don't. But anyway, so that's just gonna about do it for this one. Let me know what y'all think down in the comment section below. RIP to THQ. I ain't gonna give them GOAT status because they was doing shady shit behind the scenes. They deserve to go out of business. But anyway, so that's just gonna about do it for this one. I'll see you on the next video. Till then, peace out.